Yes, sir. Ready.
Multiple sugar.
No, 10 minutes of that.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. We, like to go ahead and call the school board meeting of Tuesday, January 26th to order. Begin each of our meeting with invocation, which will be led by Pastor Terry Howe from Living Water Fellowship. Glad to have you here. Followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Mr. Chris Burns, a fine and performing arts resource specialist, with our national anthem via video from the Hochelaga High School Choir under the direction of Janelle Burge. Of our mission statement, which will be read tonight by Ms. Pam Haas from our fine and performing arts resource specialist. And lastly, Dr. Belinda Reyes, as our Executive Director of Multicultural Culture, will call our translation services. So if you would, please silence your cell phones and rise with me for the invocation.
Heavenly Father, we thank you today that we can just come here with the school board of Osceola County. We thank you for their service, for the teachers of Osceola County. I don't think that we can say thank you enough for their service. I pray that your blessings would be upon this board, upon every one of our teachers, that you would just keep them safe. And Lord, today as the decisions are made, Lord, they be the right decisions that would take us in the right directions, God. And we just ask your blessing upon everything that we would say and do. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So proudly we hailed, and the
The mission statement of the School District of Osceola County is inspiring all learners to reach their highest potential as responsible, productive citizens.
Good afternoon. My name is Belinda Reyes and I'm here to provide translation services. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Belinda Reyes y estoy aquí para proveer servicios de traducción.
Thank you, Dr. Rich. And great job by the Temple Line Choir. I will say one thing, by turning the volume down on that a little bit, it really got the room quiet. Something that we don't usually accomplish in here too much. So, thank you all very much. That brings us to our comments portion by the board. Mr. Bass, would you like to
Start with me, sure.
You go the other way.
It's okay. I've had about 2 months under my belt so far, and you know, sometimes it's like drinking out of a fire hose, but I want to thank everyone for all of the information that's been provided to us, and I really want to start off at every meeting by thanking our educators and all of those who support them, because it's a tough job in a regular environment, and then adding this virus on top of it has been really stressful, I'm sure. We had a couple of parent calls throughout the week, and I want to thank Mr. Phelps for helping me through one of them. And we mentioned our rapid response, and it's really great to be able to pick up the phone and get the answers back to the parents. I really appreciate that. Met with Principal Allison Doe at Hickory Tree. I had a great conversation with her. She's doing phenomenal, and I like some of the things she's working on. Had a good hour-long meeting at, where's Lair? There he is. Went to Lair's office yesterday and spent about an hour with him, and that was, I really enjoyed that. I wanted to stay a little bit longer to learn how to tie that bow tie, but I'll come back and we'll do it another day. You know?
You have to go to West Point.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to my community conversation meeting at Toho. That'll be on Thursday. If anybody wants to drop by, I'd appreciate that. And finally, I want to acknowledge and congratulate this young lady sitting to my right for the birth of her first grandchild. Taking a straw poll, it's either going to be Meemaw or Granny. So you'll let me know so we can refer to you. What do you like?
Mom.
Yaya? That's all I have, sir.
I hope you don't need much help this week. Mr. Aguayo?
Yeah,
Are you done? I'm sorry.
I'm done, yes, sir. Yes, sir, thank you.
Yeah, congratulations, Tanya. We're all very happy for you. Yeah, a new extension to a beautiful family. I'd like to thank the community who came out, and I did one of the community focus groups, and that was a phenomenal experience. I learned a lot. It was 3 of them throughout the day, and I know that they're looking for more people to continue participating in that program, and it really gives us an insight into what people are thinking and what their needs are on an individual parent basis, student basis. I think it's kind of our job as school board members to get out there and do that, and the superintendent has been very gracious with a great idea and her team to facilitate and bring you guys to us and make it easy. So I hope that the community takes advantage of the fact, and when you see those there, go. If you have a lot to complain about, please make sure you go to Roberts. Which will be coming up soon. Otherwise, feel free to come, and I would encourage you to come to everyone's who, I think that Terry used to have yours left, right?
I do.
You do?
Yeah.
I do mine tomorrow.
They're great. It's a good time, and I would encourage you to participate. Also, I just want to say that I've been touring the schools in District 3, and they're really led by wonderful people and wonderful teachers, wonderful administrators, and they have wonderful families. There's so many great things going on in District 3, and I would encourage you, if you don't know what they are, to give me a call, and I can tell them to you. I also like to thank Dr. Reyes. She also gave me a very great tour of her programs and everything, and you guys are doing amazing things. So congratulations, and that's all I got. Thank you. But still appreciating the opportunity to serve you.
Ms. Castillo?
Yes, so great comments by the other board members. I'm glad that everybody's coming and having a good time and really learning their job. And
as usual, thank you staff for everything that they do. I do have some specific shout outs. I attended the SAC meeting for Thacker Elementary couple last week, and I just want to thank them for inviting me and being welcoming and listening to what I had to say and allowing me to kind of see what their process is. Also, Dr. Reyes, you're like being shut out like a million times today. Thank you so much for helping me with the million questions that I had about access and really preparing me to sort of have a really tough conversation. So I appreciate your expertise. You are one of the smartest people I know. I am so happy to be in your presence. You know your stuff, as was mentioned before, so thank you so much for that. And of course, community relations, thank you so much for helping me to tell the community about my upcoming virtual office hours, which are coming up this Thursday. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and I did my community focus group as well, and I want to appreciate Alliance for Education for organizing that. Dr. Rafalski for being my partner, because everyone knows that I'm a very active person, and I like to physically talk with my hands, and so we're just both going at it. And I just want to let parents know that thank you for coming as well, because you're being heard. As a matter of fact, one item here that was mentioned by one of the parents was that some of the water stations they don't have a bottle refilling stations. That way you could put them under there, you don't have to touch it or anything like that. And I guess we could talk about that later during the agenda, during new business. But I just thought that was an amazing idea to promote kids to drink healthy, drink water, but at the same time, respect the environment and not having to buy a bunch of water bottles and things like that. So that's something that I promised that I'll at least bring up. And the other thing too is I also want to thank Mr. Phelps and his staff. We did an expulsion hearing training. We noticed it and everything like that. And I know Mr. Argoyo was there as well. I felt very comfortable with the entire process, from start to finish. Matter of fact, I was so impressed, Mr. Phelps, that I went to the Ross Jeffries campus, and then I met Mr. Lewis. I can't remember his last name. I don't want to butcher his name, but he's a great gentleman because that's the tip of the spear. Before they get recommended for expulsion, he's that liaison that after they're done with staff, what their recommendation is going to be. And so this gentleman, you talk about a miracle worker, because every day he has like all those parents yelling at him. But my student, because it's not an expulsion hearing yet. He is like a temporary expulsion hearing officer because parents don't know the process, and he gets the brunt of all the animosity towards them. And I just want to say that for somebody to deal with that day in and day out, and to be able to walk with the kids, because he was telling me the different conversations that he has, and it was just I was blown away by how much he deals with it. And so I really thank him. And last but not least, I went to the Cattleman's Luncheon, and it was pretty cool, and I like the fact that Harmony has a club that went out there, and the students were there, handing out food and things like that. And so one thing I was thinking about, maybe the board might be interested later, is that University of Florida has the Extension Services program there, and they do different studies of like water, phosphate, and different things like that. I'd like to see if maybe we can have an internship program. And as a matter of fact, I spoke with County Commissioner, former Ricky Booth, former school board member. He was like, well, maybe they can even try to have a program where, they accept them to University of Florida. Kind of like how we have articulation agreements with Valencia, that maybe we have some kind of articulation agreement with University of Florida, and if the kids can take the classes or do things like that, that they can kind of fast track into something like that. And I'm all for supporting the students to want to be able to pursue their dreams. I'm really excited.
Deal.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Pace? All right, moving on to presentations. We have one presentation this evening, recognition of all state students. Ms. Haas, Mr. Burns.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us here today and taking a moment out of your time to recognize these all-state students. We had 33 all-state students selected and 1 all-national student selected this year. And although the conference that they usually perform at was canceled, they were able to attend an online event for the state. I do want you to know that they're selected out of thousands of other students across the state, and we're very lucky to have so many representatives from Osceola County. So here's a short video just recognizing each student. Thank you.
nicely done, and I can't wait until we can have these kids back in here. And more importantly, so they can go to the event and have fun with it. Great job, that was a nice presentation. Thanks. Appointments and transfers, Dr. Faze.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Thacker. If I could invite Mr. Dustin Sasek to the podium, please. Board members, while Dustin is approaching, I did want to take this opportunity to again congratulate Mr. Bill Dwyer, currently the principal at Flora Ridge Elementary School, as he journeys off to Maryland to be closer to his wife's family. We appreciate your leadership in the district, Bill, and we'll miss you greatly, but wish you and your family all the best. So thank you, Bill. I can't clap. And so to carry on the great work that Mr. Dwyer and Tracy Mayer and the rest of the team at Flora Ridge have been doing, I am here to recommend Mr. Dustin Sasek to become the new principal at Flora Ridge Elementary School. Dustin started in 2006 here in the school district of Osceola County. He served as an ESE teacher, a PE teacher, a math teacher, a dean of students. He became the assistant principal at Thacker Avenue and served there with Ms. Yada De La Fuentes from 2014 to 2017, and has been the assistant principal for instruction at Neptune Middle School since 2017 under the amazing leadership of Mr. Tom Rademacher. So Mr. Sasek shared with us his vision for leadership at Flora Ridge Elementary School. As he said, Mr. Rademacher and others who have come before Mr. Rademacher are developers, and he's pledged to continue to develop his people in that same vein, and I am confident he will do a fabulous job for us at Flora Ridge.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Castillo, second by Mr. Reguera. Any comments, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0. Congratulations. This is your moment if you.
What's that?
This is your moment if you have any.
Pressure's on. No, I've been looking forward to this. I'm very excited. Thank you, board. Thank you, Dr. Pace. Thank you, Dr. Ruskus, for this opportunity. I'd also be remiss if I didn't thank Mr. Allen, Mr. Rademacher, Ms. De La Fuentes, all the leaders that came, that I've been under. I've learned so much from them. I also want to thank my wife and my family who are here. My two daughters, Briella, Oliviana, my son Andrew, the loud one that you heard in the back, and my wife Carrie. They have been supportive this whole process and through, the whole administration. And then, I'm really looking forward to carrying on, what Mr. Dwyer's been doing at Flora, and continuing on that path from good to great. So thank you.
Thank you. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Board, we will go ahead and recess the regular school board meeting and open up the meeting called over the workshop for public hearing on special rulemaking cycle C. Mr. Boyd?
Good evening, board members.
We're bringing. Just a second, John, let them leave.
Yes, sir.
We'll do something more fun.
This is fun.
Kids are. I said more fun, I didn't say. Okay,
You
John.
said his son was loud. My son would have been
Oh,
disassembling a chair already.
Yeah, that was.
No worries. Thank you, board members. We bring back to you tonight the changes that we had shared with you at the workshop a month prior. And at this meeting, we would pause for a time for public comment after I read these changes that are proposed into the record. And then after that, we would request action. So the first revision that's proposed tonight is for Rule 5.352, Student Enrollment and Education Decisions. Adds paragraph 4C to acknowledge court-ordered status of both parents as emergency contacts and permits each parent to add up to 3 persons of each person's own choice to serve as emergency contacts. Excuse me. Rule 6.913, the sick leave donation rule, was already one that you approved as an emergency rule, and as I told you at the workshop, we're bringing it through this process for the formality of having it go through the process for advertisement and then final decision. The school board declared an emergency employee situation and approved this revision to the existing rule at the scheduled meeting on December 15th, 2020. This revision is included in this current formal rulemaking process for the purpose of transparency. It revises paragraphs 1 and 2 and adds paragraphs 3 and 4 to establish the compassionate sick leave program, which permits employees to donate sick leave to recipient employees to whom the donor employee is either related or unrelated. And this is the same rule with no changes that the board had already approved a month prior. The remainder of the changes that are proposed are in the student progression plan and relate to the academic honors diploma program. These revise the policy document to comply with recent changes in state law and to provide consistency with district precedent and current practice. On page 1, we revised the date to reflect today, January 26, 2021. Page 3 updates the acknowledgements page to reflect changes in school board members and school district administrators. Page 102 establishes the eligibility criteria for the SDOC Academic Honors Diploma Program. Page 114 redirects the reader to the eligibility criteria for the same program. Those are the those are the few changes we have brought to you tonight for your action. So I'll pause now to allow you to have the opportunity for public comment.
This is a public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address the board on any of these rule changes? Seeing nobody jumping up, we will close the public portion of this meeting. We will. I'm gonna let the board speak and then with that portion closed, board, do you have any comments?
I can't see the document. I know it opened up on yours, but I didn't know what it won't open up.
Here,
on
you
mine.
want to just look at mine?
Yeah, sure.
You can go back. Give Mr. Arguello just a second.
And that's just another reading, there's no action.
No, we are voting tonight, correct? Or not?
I'm sorry, your
Are we
question.
voting tonight on this?
Yes, sir.
While he's waiting on that, I have a question. If a school has a K-8, right, we have an assistant superintendent for elementary schools, an assistant superintendent for middle. Does that principal at the K-8 then have to report to both, or like, which one do they report to? You know,
Mr. Allen supervises our K-8s in our middle schools. And like Dr. Evans has Osceola School for the Arts, even though it's 612.
idle time, and I was curious about that, because the principal said, hey, I like both, and I was like, well, who do you report to?
And certainly Jane, Mike, and Chandra work very closely together to support our principals and assistant principals across the district and make sure we're staying on the same page.
Sorry, I'm a slow reader.
This one.
Yeah, I'm not gonna dance.
I'll read to the jazz.
There is something.
Oh, that was a good background song, yeah.
Any other, any questions, comments?
I do. One, and I just wanted to make sure it's kind of what I remember, that the the policy covers immediate family, right? Does that include in-laws? Because if you have a son-in-law, daughter-in-law, for example, at least from my perspective, I think that's kind of the same thing, right? What happens to your son-in-law would happen to your son, essentially,
Yes,
or
sir.
daughter.
If they were not covered by the original definition of related, they are now covered by the non-relative. So this policy is neutral to that effect, but I've preserved the language from the original rule that referred to just the relative and then added the piece for the non-relative when we originally approved it.
Okay.
I mean, when the board originally approved it, excuse me. Yes, sir.
No? Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else with comments? Not, I entertain a motion.
Motion approved as submitted.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Melendez, with a second by Ms. Castillo, to approve the changes in rules which have been read into the record. Any further discussion, board? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much, John. And with that, we will adjourn the workshop, and we will reconvene the Tuesday, January 22nd, regular school board meeting. Brings us to,
That was a yawn, sorry.
okay. That's all right.
This was hiding it, you see.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I thought it was Dr. Pace getting ready to tell me I missed something.
No.
Agenda modifications, does anybody, any board members? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know, because we're bouncing back and forth.
No, I drew my line, I marked in the wrong spot.
I apologize, Chairman Thacker, members of the board. This is going to be very, very brief, but in keeping with our tradition, I did want to update you on a few things regarding our back to school. Currently, we are at 28.9% digital learning. Average daily attendance for our digital learners is at 86.6%. We have 71.2% face-to-face learners, and the average daily attendance is 87.2%. There is a level of concern because our average daily attendance is typically right around 94%. That is our goal, but our student services department, as well as our school admin teams, counseling teams, are continuing our outreach. As I shared with you in the strategic planning workshop, they have now made contact with 35% of our true GO students from whom we had heard nothing first semester with the home visits. Those are continuing, and we have 4 of those students re-engaging in pending enrollment. So we're going to continue that outreach to make sure we're not letting students fall through the cracks. I also wanted to share with you that of the now 264 employees who are eligible for vaccine, they're 65 and older. So, some of the 306 were on leave and had other mitigating factors. We now have scheduled 101 for appointments. Some of those were last Monday on Martin Luther King Day. Some of those were yesterday, and then we have some additional appointments scheduled for tomorrow. 31 of our employees have indicated they've already received the shot. 20 have declined the vaccination so far, and we're still working to outreach to the 112 who fit that category, but who have not yet responded. We've sent 3 emails. We've done an out dial. We've had 2 attempts from their principal or their supervisor. We've had an individual email, and Mr. Phelps and I have both been on the phone to our employees to try to help secure those appointments. As you know, our local Department of Health doesn't have the resources to set up a separate pod, but they are very cooperative with us in helping to prioritize our employees, and we'll continue to try to make that outreach, as well as push for opening it up. In addition, we've been able to do all of our district school and district nurses, our LPNs and our RNs. I learned today that a couple of our neighboring districts had gotten permission to do athletic trainers as medical providers, so we will follow up to see if I can get them added to the list and just kind of keep chipping away at this. I will share with the community that the 65 and older is non-negotiable at this point in time. We had someone who turned 65 in 3 days. He had to wait until Friday when he's 65 to go for the test, the vaccine, so they turned him away. But like I said, we're just continuing to try to chip away and hope that we'll continue to get access. In addition, we are continuing our pool testing. As you know, the board wanted us to continue to do that, so we're still doing two schools every day. One in the east zone, one in the west zone. So far this semester, we have tested 729 students, 349 staff, and of that 1,078, we had 6 test positive who were asymptomatic, so that's 0.0056%. And since August, our total pool testing, we've done 7,175 teachers and staff members. We've only had 23 positives out of that, so our pool testing in overall is 0.0032%. So we continue to maintain that lower trend, far lower than our local positivity rate, although the community trend is slowing down, both in terms of number of positivity cases as well as the positivity rate in hospitalizations and deaths. So hopefully we've weathered the holiday storm and we're starting to see this slow down if people will continue to practice the good hygiene, social distancing, and wear these masks. That's just critically important until we can get the vaccine more available. But that's all I had for a back to school update, in case, unless you have any other questions.
I'd like to say tremendous job. I know that, I think that you were like on the first plane to China to get a vaccine before COVID even came here, trying to get our teachers vaccinated. So truly proactive, and that's a great job.
Trying.
Thank you.
All right.
I want to echo Mr. Arguello's sentiments. We sit here, we represent the community, and I know that we're constantly texting, emailing, calling, having meetings, and telling you all of the things that are not working on behalf of our community. But I could not be more proud of the work that you specifically have done, as well as everyone involved during the entire crisis, but specifically to help those very vulnerable teachers and staff members. We did say they were essential workers, so I'm excited and happy that you are advocating on their behalf. I do have one question. Are students still working independently? Are we integrating back into groups at some point?
We did small groups from the very beginning, just trying to do that strategically. So instead of having desks facing one another and kids sitting next to each other, we're still maintaining that distance where we keep the desks apart, and it's more of a turn and talk, make sure you have your mask on, as opposed to talking face to face. In addition, we've encouraged teachers to use active engagement strategies. So for example, walking around the classroom, and instead of doing the tag to exchange an answer, you do an air tag or a fist bump when it comes to time to partner up and exchange those answers. But we know that reading and writing and talking and solving together is such a critical part of the learning that we don't want to completely lose that. It's just a matter of figuring out how to do it safely.
Okay. I mean, it sounds like, just based on the data from poll testing, that we're exceptionally low in schools. So thank you so much to everyone. This is a community effort to ensure that our children are, and of course, all our staff safe. So thank you.
Mr. Pace, can we get the reports by district?
Yes, you can. I'll forward that to you.
That 23 positive is reflective of what we've tested. I mean, what we have tested, but that's not reflective of the total number that have been.
Oh, no, that is strictly the asymptomatic pool testing in our schools that the board is contracted with.
Gotcha.
Okay. Again, I echo the other comments, Dr. Pace, great job. You and your team that's working on this. Brings us to agenda modifications. Any changes or to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, on item 14.01, you will not be asked to vote on that tonight.
So it's just going to be a presentation. Any other changes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion by Mr. Bass, with a second by Mr. Melendez, to approve the agenda and the consent agenda.
Just a consent agenda.
Consent
agenda.
We approve the agenda too.
No changes.
No, we have.
Oh, we can still discuss them though, because I don't have any issues with consent, I just want to discuss them.
We're approving the agenda and the items in the consent agenda. He made a change to item 14 point.
Yeah, you okay with that?
So we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as well as the items in the, not the items, but the overall agenda with the change of 14.01 being information as opposed to a motion, a vote. All that's correct with you too? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion carries 5-0. That brings us to item 11 on our regular agenda, correct? Human Resources. Board, your pleasure.
11:02.
So are we gonna do them individually? Or,
We normally do them together unless somebody wants to pull one of them.
no, I would make a motion to approve, item 1105, so the entire, agenda, but I do have a discussion.
That's okay.
Right, I would like to pull 11:02 for discussion.
Then we need to do.
Perfect.
Okay. You want to discuss 11:02, so let's start at item 11:01. Board,
Motion to approve 1101.
Second.
have a motion by Ms. Castillo, second by Mr. Melendez to approve item 11.01. Any further discussion, board? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion carries 5-0. 11.02, Mr. Melendez?
Or ladies first.
No, that's,
You
that's
pulled
not the
it,
one.
you pulled it.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right, yeah, the data science position, there was two, issues that I had about it, because I like the job description where it's monitoring student progress and things like that. For some reason, I just thought there was somebody at the district already doing that. I mean, there's not somebody like monitoring the progress and following up the students to make sure that they're getting to where they need to go.
There are a lot of people doing that, Mr. Melendez. This, however, is a position that was deemed necessary in the governor's aspect of the CARES budget. And these dollars, if the district decides to accept them, can only be used for this particular position in recognition of the fact that the emergency order and the state assurances plan requires more careful monitoring of student data than ever before. We absolutely are gonna do it, no matter what, but these are dollars coming down from the state through the governor's CARES dollars, the CARES money, that are specifically designated for this position and cannot be used on anything else. It's also something that we plan to make clear during the course of advertising and interviewing for the position, that it is a grant-funded position. At the end of 2 years, if the grant goes away, it will be up to the board at that time to decide if the position should continue coming out of another source or not.
Or can we get kind of creative with it, and if somebody's similar to that job description and like internally already there, if they can fill that position, and then we can save the money on general revenue, because then they're already kind of like already halfway there. And we
That's
can use
not the way
CARES dollars.
the language was written, sir.
That's all I can say.
No more questions on the motion?
That was the language, referring to the request by the state.
And I just thought we can get, creative with it, not in a negative sense, but I'm talking about if we have somebody that's already similar there instead of hiring somebody new, and then in 2 years, the grant may not get funded. If we already have somebody there, we can save the district some money and still fulfill the requirements of the category by the state. So I try to get, legally, ethically, above board, you know what I mean? Just really comply with the state, but at the same time, save some money. That's what I was trying to get to.
I understand. I stand behind the recommendation for this position.
No, I do not have a comment on 1102. It was 1101. It's not material, so I was gonna vote on it anyway. I don't know if this is the right time.
We just voted on it.
I know, it's not material.
Let's
I was
finish
gonna vote on it anyway.
11:02, then you
Yes,
come back to your, just
absolutely.
your comment on 11:01. Motion for 11:02,
I'll make a motion to approve 1102.
I have a motion by Ms. Castillo with a second by Mr. Bass to approve item 11.02. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion carries 5-0. Ms. Castillo, we're back up just a step here. We've already voted on it. Have a
Yes.
comment on 11:01.
I apologize,
That's
Mr.
okay.
Chair. I
Okay.
should have been paying more attention
That's
to the order. This is not material. I'm ecstatic that we have this position because the conversation about safety with our bus drivers has been an ongoing conversation, so I'm so glad that we have this. The only point of discussion that I would have, and I don't want to overstep my boundaries because you are experts in your field, but as somebody who is in training and development, one of the things that I struggle with even in my position is quantifying success and what that looks like. And this position is very specifically tied to less accidents, at least the way that I see it. And I could be wrong about that. So I know that part of their position, their job would be to train our bus drivers to be safer. Is that correct? Yes? Okay. So I don't have an issue with it. I think it's great that we have it, and I'm excited that we finally have it. But I do want to make sure that when we are selecting this person, that one of the things that we really hone in on is that part of their job is to reduce those numbers. I think that's really important. So that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Randy, if I could meet with you and Arby, I'd like to go over a sampling of the accident cases we've had to deal with, so that the trainer
Actually, would be
knows.
good.
Yeah,
Help me
that's
feel
what
good.
we're seeing.
Yes.
That's a great point of discussion that we brought, we should have had this.
I mean, the position, it is written in the position, so it's not like it's not. You know, I read the description of the position and all of that. I'm just looking at it with what I do for a living and how we measure success. Sometimes when you're a trainer, it's like, okay, I'm training people, but you have actual measurements. And for this position, I think that that's really important.
Yeah, reduce the outcomes.
Absolutely. Yes.
Very good point.
Order 11.03. Questions or motions?
I move to approve.
Yeah, second with discussion, I know that these are some difficult times and.
Hold on just a second. We have a motion by Mr. Bass, with a second by Mr. Melendez on item 11.03. Mr. Melendez, discussion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, and I know that these are some difficult times, and, I want to take the time to thank staff, because we don't know what the state is going to do for us in a couple months. We don't know what kind of adjustments that we're going to be making to the budget. So I kind of talked to Dr. Pace about this ahead of time, that I'm a little leery of giving away the money before we know the results from Tallahassee. But then she mentioned it to me, and I really concur that this year has been an anomaly. I can't even try to pronounce that really fast. And so I just want the staff to know that we do care, and we understand that, because a lot of times we talk about the teachers going, bananas this year. The staff has to be able to create a master schedule. And there is no master schedule when you don't know who's in digital, who's in a classroom, who's not. And so that kind of really tore me into that and say, you know what, we can make the compromise in other places of the budget because, our staff and our admin deserve it. And so I just want to, again, send kudos, from the rest of the board to sit there and say, okay, we're going to go ahead and make that commitment to you guys because we understand that the circumstances that you're under aren't normal. And we appreciate that. And there's nothing better to say thank you than to actually give you a little money in your wallet. So I just, from my perspective, I want to say again, thank you to all the admins for really committing to the district and going the extra mile this year.
Any other comments?
I do, and I kind of hesitate to say this because I'm surrounded by administrators, but I do hesitate to do this out of order in the sense that we are the 3%. I think that I wasn't paying close enough attention when we had discussed this previously, because we're unfortunately I guess the union didn't come through on theirs, right? Like we didn't come to an agreement. I think that that's unfortunate. I kind of feel like all of these things should be happening at the same time. So I hate that we are not providing the supplement to the administrators, which it's duly deserved, but that we're doing it out of sync. And it really should be all together, in my opinion, just because, at least for me, it's a bad taste where a leader gets theirs before somebody else. In my opinion, I just think that we should be eating last. And I know that this is not a situation where we're in control of it necessarily. I will say that I also met with the union folks, and we didn't discuss this, so it's I wish that we had, because I think I would have encouraged them that this is something that they need. But I think that's my only hesitation. Of course, I would never vote something like this down because considering the circumstances, they deserve it and they need it. And even if they don't, they still deserve it. So,
But I can appreciate what he's saying, because it is like a pickle, because I grew up in the military too, like what you said, and, you know, when you're in the food service line, the senior leaders, we in the back of the line, all the Joes and rank and file, and if there's food left over, then we eat. If there's no food left over, then so sad, we don't eat, you know, and I can appreciate that, you know, and that was the pickle that I was in, John, when I was saying earlier, and I was talking to Dr. Pace, and I'm like, but I really do appreciate what the admin did. But the thing is, they're kind of tight together, you know what I mean? So I wish we could have had an agreement with the union, and then it would be no problem. So it's not like we didn't have that discussion. So, but you're right, though. I mean, do we table it until after they come to an agreement, and then we do it all at once? Or do we sit there and say, okay, we know what admin did, we appreciate what they did, then hopefully the other ones can come in line with whatever agreement that we can. But I know what you're saying, though, because that was the hesitation that I had. It's not like I didn't want to pay admin. It's just that I do, just philosophically, feel the same way, too. I like to take care of my Joes first before I take care of my senior leaders.
If I may. First of all, I want to remind everybody, this is a non-recurring supplement. It's not a raise. Because of the difficult budget times that we are in, you have already reached agreement with your teachers for the teacher salary allocation, which averaged to about a 2.99% raise. We've also already reached agreement with Teamsters. We're simply waiting for the process of the ratification vote. And also on this agenda are your non-bargaining professional support staff, your secretaries, your computer techs, those types of people. And I would just simply say that in many cases, these are the people who've been on the front lines since March. And I absolutely understand where you're coming from as a leader. None of this money is for me, okay? Because I'm not taking any of this kind of money because we aren't able to give everybody a raise. But I do feel like I have to fight for our administrators and our non-professional support staff who have been absolutely critical on the front line throughout this entire process. And certainly we want to reach agreement with our other support staff employees, hope to get back to the table as soon as we possibly can, so that we can make sure that this is done equally across the board for everybody as much as we possibly can in a year where the teacher salary allocation was its own categorical. That's all that I would say.
In the future, though, I would like to see it segregated and come to an agreement with the rank and file first and then have the discussion with admin, instead of maybe having it all concurrent, because admin doesn't have a union, so there's no negotiation process back and forth. So I think in the future, let's get those agreements settled down first with them, because, you know, because this already happened. We're already moving forward. I'm gonna vote for it because I support everything the admin's doing, but I think that in the future, you know, we work out the Joes first, have those agreements, and then we have that discussion with admin, kind of separating the two pieces, rather than think of it as collectively separating them.
The only other thing that I would add is that this includes the calendar component, and rodeo day is just a few weeks away.
yeah. I mean, I get it, and I'm definitely not shedding blame on the district or its employees. In my family, we wait until everybody comes to eat, right? And so, that's just my only hesitation here. It's not because they don't deserve it. It's not because, I mean, we're not in control of whether or not they accept it. So.
Point well taken, absolutely, I understand.
Anybody, any other comments? Discussion? Anything else? We have a motion by Mr. Bass with a second by Mr. Melendez to approve item 11.03. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0. Board moves to 11.04. Closes.
Motion to approve 11.04.
Second.
Have a motion by Ms. Castillo to approve item 11.04. And a second by Mr. Arguello. Board, any further discussion? A couple votes no. Hearing none, I have a motion for approval by Ms. Castillo, second by Mr. Arguello for 11.04. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0. Brings us forward to regular facilities, item 12. We can do these one at a time, or if there's no big questions, we can do the 12.05 and the block.
I'm looking at the clock, Mr. Chair.
Is that a motion?
Well, I motion to submit, yeah, oh, I didn't know, I didn't know it was on me to, yeah. I motion to approve 1205 to accept all the items in item number 12 together.
A motion by Mr. Melendez, and a second by Mr. Bass, right? To approve item 12.05. Board, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of 12.05, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion carries 5-0. Brings us to our public comment portion of the meeting. And Tanya, do you know if I have 4? I swear I thought I saw 5 and I only have 4.
I only have 3.
Okay, I got it. I'll call for somebody else at the end.
Somebody that you got
And
after.
make sure. I don't know why I thought I saw 5. Mr. Harza, for the record, we, 3 minutes, to address the board. What's your name and address for the record? And you know the rules, you know the game.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, thank you, board members, Superintendent. My name is Ralph Arza. I live in Palm Beach County. I'm a former legislator. I was a teacher for 18 years and I was a football coach down at Miami Senior High School. I represent the Florida Charter School Alliance, and we represent some of the top performing organizations in the state. All the academic and managed schools, Charter Schools USA School, the Four Corners High School in your district, 100% graduation rate. We also represent some smaller organizations, and we represent Main Street. And I got a call from Dr. Pace, and one thing I know about Dr. Pace, she can be very clear and direct. When she's disappointed about something, you can see she hurt her hand trying to hit me. But on the 6%, graduation rate. And look, the nonprofit board of Main Street is extremely concerned. They have taken immediate decisions. Tom Jackson, the CEO of Edison Learning, who manages the school. We have Dr. Hobbs here. She is from assistant superintendent from Michigan. She was down in Fort Lauderdale. She is now a new resident of Osceola as of yesterday, and she will be the interim principal to address the concerns. It is completely, and listen, as a teacher and a coach, it is completely unacceptable for us to have that graduation rate. Now, I do want you to take into account that when we get kids, they are behind. It's like a trauma unit. They walk in, they're behind 2 years, sometimes 3 years. We have to try to catch them up. Now, that is not an excuse. We should be nowhere near that 6%, and we can do better, and we're committed to doing better. And I came here today to tell you personally, to tell Dr. Pace, listen, you guys have an incredible school district. I work with a lot of school districts. You guys are doing an incredible job. And sometimes you don't get to see yourselves from the outside, but you are doing a great job with face-to-face instruction. You really are. I think that's why the governor came here to make the announcement on Executive Order 07. So if you have any questions, I'll entertain them. But we are addressing the issue. There's new leadership at the school. People are no longer working there as a result of what took place.
Thank you for coming.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
could I cross examine Representative Morris?
Next up, Ms. Rodriguez. Rich, you know, name and address for the record in 3 minutes.
Thank you, Board. My name is Richard Rodriguez. I'm at 1314 Moss Creek Lane, Kissimmee. I am an employee of Pirtle Construction, and I want to first and foremost, I want to thank you for the approval of the pre-construction services proposal to get started on that school. I'm just here to let you know that we've been working hard for the district. We're going to continue to work hard for the district, and we're going to be sure that this one's another successful project for you guys. So you won't be seeing me up here with any bad news. That's it. Thank you.
We're gonna watch those change orders.
Next up, Louis Rivera.
Hey, disclaimer, we graduated high school.
Did I say that? Did I say his first name right?
Yes.
Louis Rivera, I live in Point Place Avenue here in Kissimmee. When I'm done with this, I just want you guys to know if I ever see you on the side of the road, I'll help you change a tire. This isn't anything personal. I'm speaking as a parent after speaking to a couple of parents. Just want you to know, don't take this personal, all right? Normally, students at this time of year would have the opportunity to drive down to Tampa and spend a few hours participating in all-state activities. There's a certain feeling that students will always remember, equivalent to graduation, the events that led to this special week. It's the drive down to Tampa, looking upon the convention center, engaging with students and teachers throughout the state. This year, the end result of the All-State was a 3-day event compressed to 3 hours of virtual nothing. Today, you don't see the music students as equal. Sounds cliche. You require students to adhere to the CDC guidelines, wearing masks, social distancing, hand washing during school, but at 4 p.m., poof, all goes away. There's no viruses that's transmitted, especially if you're going into sports. Look at it like this. Everyone here has had a COVID test. Medical personnel wear scrubs, plastic over scrubs, 2 face masks, face shields at minimum. How stupid would it be a decision that medical person using all that PPE during their work shift and then going out to have a drink with friends? Let me give you a couple of silly examples. In Ohio State, the wrestling COVID rules said you can wrestle, but you cannot shake hands. Championship football game, 2 players came for a coin toss because of COVID instead of 5, but they ended up shaking hands and giving the half hug. My point in all this is that you did a beautiful virtual acknowledgement for students who achieved all-state honors. And like I said, don't take this to offense, it's just the most recent thing that I've seen. Yet, Teacher of the Year finalists were greeted in schools with flowers and stood for group photos. You tell me your concerns for safety of students, therefore you follow the CDC guidelines, but there's no way that you can convince me as a parent that after 4 p.m., all the sports that are happening, that they're not engaging in contact. I'm here to request that you encourage all schools to get creative and start allowing concerts, prom, graduations, award ceremonies, and after-school clubs. If you allow sports to continue, they are not following CDC guidelines. You can allow the previously mentioned activities. Understand this, my child who achieved all-state honors, if this were an athletic sport, would be jumping up and down, giving high fives, fist bumps, or jumping in the air, or whatever it is that we do to greet each other like we did this just before we came in here. But it's just music. So what do they get? An afternoon PDF file displayed, that's it. We can do better. It is important that students engage. It is important that you allow the opportunity for these students to engage because they need to get out the house. They need to have these concerts. They need to have these proms. You guys have to get creative. I honestly do not, CDC guidelines, 6 feet apart, wearing a mask, basketball, football, track, nobody's doing it. So how come you can't have a graduation and get creative? How come you can't have a dance? Wear gloves, I don't care. These kids need to get out the house. We're all here. My kid could have stood there and got a, whatever it is that you guys get. But we're here distancing as adults. You guys need to do this the same with the kids. And like I said, I really appreciate everything you guys are doing. You guys are doing a great job. I just had to, share this piece, okay?
I have a question on that. So
Thank you for your comment.
when prom does come out, are we gonna make like a final decision on that? Or can we kind of let like February, March, or are we gonna give like a hard deadline to figure that out?
Currently, I'm in discussion with my fellow superintendents from Central Florida regarding graduation ceremonies. We're looking at evaluation in February, or definitely before spring break for that. I did clear up today, this week, with Dr. Evans and Mr. Allen, moving forward with things like Grad Bash for our seniors and also 8th graders. The parks have been open, they're maintaining social distancing, have very tight protocols for mask wearing. What we may have to do is supplement each school with an extra bus so that we can also have a little bit more social distancing on the, transportation there and from. I talked with my senior focus group. I'm going to be honest. Prom makes me a little nervous. Okay, dancing is dancing, and if you've been to a high school dance anytime lately, there is no social distancing. Okay, so. But I've challenged the students in our senior focus group to come up with some creative alternatives and to send those to me. And I tell them that my goal is always to try to say yes
but we may have to make some parameters for that. We already are planning on a very creative, exciting senior week again during their last week of classes. Very similar to what we did last year. Schools did some great things with face-to-face and in-person. So we're working towards that. I'm just not confident and comfortable right now making a decision about prom. So our procurement team has worked with the principals, with Dr. Evans and the group to look at locations and of avenues where they wouldn't penalize us if we had a cancellation, you know, right up until kind of close to the end. So that's kind of where we are with those things right now.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Dr. Pace, I could bring in a bunch of nuns from my high school to make sure there was social distancing. Just the enforcement policies are pretty tough.
But you know, what he said was accurate though, because as again, speaking as a father of a high schooler, you know, they follow strict protocol when they're in school. But when the bell rings, unfortunately, and you know, I'm on to my daughter all the time, but I see it. I mean, I'm out there amongst them, and they're either going to dance at the prom or dance after the prom. I mean, it's what it is. But I understand we have to follow protocol.
And I appreciate too, Dr. Pace separating it too, and saying, okay, prom is a different scenario than graduation, where it's a little bit more of a controlled environment. And so, and grad bash, you know, we call them grad nights when I graduated back in the day. But, you know, so I do appreciate that, at least making the effort, and that means a lot to me personally when I talk to folks. Because senior is tough. I mean, last year it was heartbreaking. They couldn't, you know what I mean? And it is a balance, you know what I mean? And it's a delicate balance that I feel more comfortable that based on the answer, Dr. Pace, that at least we're trying to walk that tightrope, and I appreciate it.
I think that the challenge that the gentleman made was that we get creative, and I think that can happen. I mean, even smaller group proms, you know, or something else that to not create unnecessary barriers to finding a way for these kids to develop the experiences that we all got to have, you know.
And that's why I challenge the kids, you know, to be thinking about things in a creative way, because they're really good. I mean, and I reminded them that as a high school principal, I once said yes to a Ludacris concert. So I'm not adverse to risk. It's a little bit of a different situation.
She had her hand on the plug, the whole concert, ready to pull it if something went awry.
I'm gonna change your ringtone on my phone.
Well, we have one more public comment, Mr. Allen. And since I am seeing things, I just want to make sure, you can go on it. Is there anybody I've missed? I already know the rules.
Let me get my eyes on it. Blair Allen, 722 Maddox Court, Abbott Street, whatever. I'm the teacher union president. I had no intentions of talking about this, but you all brought some things up. And first of all, actions speak louder than words. It's not always about the salary, but it's about your actions, and people draw conclusions based on your actions. I appreciate my fellow military brothers up there mentioning that leaders eat last. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. That's not anything to compromise. You know, and I understand we can't all reach agreements at the same time for all the different contracts, but leaders eat last. Simple as that. Since July of last year, we've been attempting to talk about salaries for our ESPs. Since July. And we've been told over and over and over and over again, there's $0 for that. I'm told recently you offered a 3% stipend. Now the way that works out, and correct me if I get my numbers wrong, but for the Teamsters, if you break it down per person, that's about $700. For the non-bargaining units, that's about $1,800 per person. For the ESPs that we represent, I said 1,800, okay? For our ESPs, that's about $826, but for the administrators, that's $3,120. So actions do speak louder than words, people. Now, getting on to what I was going to talk about is students don't have a union, parents don't have a union, so we sort of like step into that role and advocate for them, because the teachers and the ESP's working conditions are students' learning conditions, and that's what the parents are concerned about. So the teachers and the ESPs are sort of like, you've done this growing up. You've had one or two that you treated just like they're your mom. And when mama ain't happy, nobody's happy. So that's why it's important to take care of the teachers and the ESPs. Our association reps, we had a meeting last night. You might call them our union stewards, and they had some concerns. One of them is like the inconsistencies from school to school and even within the school of the contact tracing, and also what happens when somebody does test positive for COVID. Are they quarantined? Do they have to, how many days are they quarantined? Are they allowed to teach from home? Another concern is the classrooms are filling up. A lot of the classrooms do not have this much spacing in them. So people that are concerned about their health, naturally they get a little agitated and uncomfortable when the students start coming in the classroom and they're filling up the classes. Masks, since the distance has been cut down, masks are even more important. So I don't know how to say this, but as a leader, you're always being watched. You are leading by example. So if you're nonchalant with your mask wearing, what does that say to everyone else? They're always watching. It's sort of like, and you may not mean it. There's a difference between intent and impact. So even though you may not intend to make them uncomfortable, you do have an impact on them and how they go through their day. It's sort of like having a submarine that's got the door open just a little bit. You know, you can't, we've been lucky, Osceola County, not that many cases. That's great. But we can't, it's sort of like being in a war zone. You know, with soldiers, if they're not shooting at you right away, soldiers tend to take their helmets off, and that's when bad stuff happens. You know, when you have a wreck, it's normally within 2 miles of getting it home. So we got to keep our foot on the gas and be vigilant. The other concerns were having their ESPs pulled out of from their duties where they're helping ESC or special needs students or ELL students. They're being pulled to cover other areas because we don't have enough subs. So that affects our students, not only the classroom and the teachers and the ESPs, that affects the students. And sooner or later, the state is, as you all know, they want to have grades assigned. So that's kind of important. Of course, you know about the insurance. People are not happy with having to switch, but they did request that we keep seeking more doctors, more local doctors, so they don't have to travel 30, 45 minutes, you know, and spend $30 on an Uber one way just to get to their appointment if you're a cancer patient. And I'll skip over that one, but there's a chain of command. When you're having something wrong or something that you perceive is wrong going on at your school, please talk to your administration. You know, and if you don't get the answers that you need, I've met with, I think it's 4 out of 5 school board members, one-on-one, and I do believe that after you've gone through the chain of command, if you will address your concerns to them, they will help you reach a solution. So I think that's about it. I encourage you all to go there. Everybody's watching in TV land, to go to their town halls and just talk to these people. That's where it all starts. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Kruppenbacher, we're not approving this, but
As members of the board, at the last meeting, I gave you all the packet, e-signing sheet and a thing that I put together back a couple of things in the meeting. This is a resolution which the board will ultimately adopt. And this is the form of procedure by which this board can operate. I ask you to read it through. I'll call you this week or next week to make sure, and not next week's meeting because it's already scheduled. I'll be looking to bring it back at the end of February to have the board adopt it and adopt what we're going to put on the table. So there's no pride of authorship, so whatever you want to say, but I'll try and make it all work.
thank you. I don't believe we have any unfinished business, new business. Mr. Melendez, under board comments, I think you wanted to talk about the water.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, this was an item brought up to the parent. And so I spoke with Mr. Clench, if he wants to jump in at any time, because no pride of authorship on my side too. I just, again, this is just something that we heard, that was spoken about, because I know we have one here at the administration building. When I went to Valencia, they had them too, especially now with the whole COVID environment. We talk about contactless, some of those water fountains are old, and when you try to drink it, the water doesn't really come out, and you want kids like slobbering all over it and stuff like that. And so, I just wanted to see, board's, direction for the future. Like, do we want to make it like as a standard in the future? Does it say, okay, all of them, or maybe half of them, or whatever the case may be? And then also, he went over looking at the old schools, like retrofitting versus replacing, and again, just encouraging kids to not only drink more water, but there's recess, they're running around. A lot of times too, we can have water bottles given to the kids. We can get sponsors to help out with that, because most backpacks have a little mesh pocket on the side, and they can carry it with them. Because I know my son does that, and so I just if Mark wants to add anything or anything I missed, because I think these are prototype schools and they're not exact. They're just estimates. One school may not have as many or may not need it or anything like that. So but I just do appreciate him taking it seriously, because again, we're talking about getting community engagement. So when they brought it up in the focus group, I promised them that I would follow through with it, and it was amazing that I spoke with Mark, I spoke with Dr. Pace about it, and everyone's like, okay, we can't commit to anything, but we're going to commit to at least listening to the parents' concerns and bringing it up. And I thought this was like a nice little home run that we can do to let them know that, hey, we are listening, and we can modify it as needed. Either we do all of them or some of them, or the other thing too is maybe we can even look at using some of the stimulus dollars, because it is contactless. And so maybe the grant can help retrofit some of them. So those are some of the concepts I brought up. I don't know if I missed anything, Mark.
Yes, sir. So Mr. Melendez reached out to me last week asking for retrofit estimates for our water fountains. So there are retrofit kits that are available for most of the newer model water fountains. For example, the water fountain that's located right outside the hallway of the boardroom has a retrofit kit. So I provided the retrofit estimates, and these are rough order of magnitude, and we use quantities based on recent elementary, middle, and high school projects. There are no projects in mind at this time. This is simply a rough order of magnitude estimate. In addition, I provided Mr. Melendez with estimated costs for replacements as well, because some of the older drinking fountains do not have retrofit kits available. So in that case, the entire water fountain would have to be replaced with a newer fountain that is equipped with a water hydration station. But in order to really do this, if we have a school in mind, what I would recommend is we go out and do a site assessment to see what's truly out there, to determine which we can install the retrofit kit and which we would have to replace to come up with a comprehensive estimate. But I hope the information is helpful. Thank you.
Right. And I wouldn't mind doing like a little pilot program, and by disclaiming the parent is from Celebration K8. So if we decide to do 2 or 3 as a pilot program, I'd like to include the parent that gave me the suggestion to do it. So that's just, it's not even my district. I just feel for.
We serve all children.
I'm sorry, there's one other piece of information I wanted to add. So these water hydration fountains require a filter, and the filter is quite costly from our research, and the recommendation is to change that filter every 3 months, just like your refrigerator at home. But wanted to share that information as well. There's a counter on each of these water hydration kits that counts how many water bottles you fill, so that the frequency of replacing that filter would be based on the use of that fountain. Also, there is a water status indicator light. It's a green, yellow, red, just like a traffic signal, so that when the green light is displayed, filter's good. When the yellow light is displayed, that means that the filter is getting close. Red light indicates that it is now time to change that filter. Thank you.
And it's just an informational item for now. No voting.
Sure. And Any other new business, or, board comments?
I have two comments.
Sure.
First, since we are speaking with Mr. Clinch, I'll continue the conversation. So one of the things, I know that we all take a lot of time to read our agenda items and prepare for this meeting. And I have found myself several times going back years even, looking at previous iterations of either an agreement or some kind of resolution that we did just so that I can inform myself. So I had this conversation with Mr. Clinch, but it's not an exclusive conversation to agenda items for facilities, just in general. I'm wondering how difficult it might be to include some of those items as attachments. So let me tell you what I mean. Because you're like, what are you talking about?
You've lost me.
I
I thought I knew where you were going.
No, so for example, I'm gonna use the GHS renovation. We have talked about this for a very long time. So obviously if any community member or any board member wants to search for it, they just search on board docs and they can find it. I'm wondering if we can make that easier by just attaching that as an item. I don't know if this is a need for anybody. It may not be. I can very well search it and it's fine, but I don't know if it'll make it.
Hyperlink. It may not have to be
Yeah,
PDF,
it's like
but
a
you can click on it
hyperlink.
and
I don't know if that's something that can be done through board docs. I think it just makes it easier for me to be informed. Again, I don't know if you guys even want this.
So what are you learning or gaining by comparing?
So, for example, let's say that for GHS to me, I've been through the entire process, so I really don't have a lot of questions, but Celebration Aisle, for example, there was a lot of talk and work done on that item before I came on board. So in order for me to really get a full picture of what I was voting on and things like that, I needed to go back. So, and the way I did that was just by searching for a specific item. I don't know if that's a necessary thing for all of you. I just thought I would bring it up to see if it's something that you might want to consider. I've had the same kind of conversation about finance as well, because again, there's so many things that we kind of have to understand in order to understand one specific action. So just out there, if you are not into if it's not something you need, I get it. It's a lot of work.
I can actually
It could be a lot of work.
I can appreciate what you're saying, and just let me frame it in my words to make sure I'm tracking what you're saying.
Mhm.
Like, for instance, we vote on an amendment to a contract,
Yes.
right? But just for whatever, but we don't have a copy of the original contract.
That's what I mean.
So if we have a hyperlink, so we don't have to PDF everything and make it super heavy, but if we could link it to the original contract so we can see what we're amending, because we only see the amendment, but we don't see the original agreement. And like what Ms. Castillo said, I actually kind of agree with you. Some of these contracts are like 2 or 3 years in the making. We weren't on the board, we weren't seeing what was the original terms and conditions. So like a hyperlink,
Or
to the
notes,
original
right? To be fair, you can do this on your own. You can search and you can find it. It takes maybe about 2 extra minutes of your time if you know what you're doing. I didn't know if that was something that we wanted to explore.
No,
So
but it's
that was,
also for the public too, because
well,
the public
that's
may be,
really
the public's looking at the
why
agenda.
I'm saying
They
it.
wanna follow what's going on too.
Because I've had conversations with people about agreements that we have talked about on the dais, and then I have to be like, wait, but you have to understand this piece of it as well. All public information, of course, but it is a little difficult if they are not on board docs every week like we are, for them to be able to find it.
Well, is that something that's doable?
If, with the board's pleasure, let me go back to Tanya and Giselle and talk to a couple of folks and let's test out a couple of items to see. It could get very arduous in preparation of the board meeting agenda. We're certainly willing to try to do what we can to keep the board informed, and anytime you want to see a document, you don't have to look, we'll help you find it or we'll get it for you and send it to you. But let me go back before I make any commitments, if that's okay.
It doesn't even have to be like something extra arduous, like we talked about this in that meeting or whatever, to just signal to whomever is researching, this was already talked about before. And if it's a lot of work, I know you guys put in the work, trust, but
let me go back and dig into that, okay?
Thank you. My second item is board last Friday during Dr. Pay sent out the board update, and she did allude to the fact that myself and Mr. Koppenbacher have been working on some possible policy changes for to deal with some sexual harassment and healthy relationship conversations. this also happened before you were on the board. So I'm not asking for anything other than for your awareness that I'm hoping Mr. Kroppenbacher will get with you guys and soon we'll have some kind of plan. Just to give you some historical information, this was an issue that was brought up by students, and we have been meeting specifically with students about how to address it because they're the ones who are at the center of this conversation. So I just wanted you to know, as we refine, possible ideas and changes to what we're already doing for our students, I want you guys to know that Mr. Kroppenbacher has been working on that with me, and he will probably be sitting with you guys on that. Yes.
Members of the board, just to give you a background, we have had students talk to us about legitimate issues that have impacted them. Many of those issues are external to the school, but it has a negative impact on the student, so it impacts them at school. And it's really an issue of student-on-student conduct. Students knowing what they can say no to, what they can stop, who to talk to, etc. Thank God we didn't hear anything about faculty or staff.
Right.
It does happen, unfortunately. Not here, but in general.
We are going, in the next week or so, I'll be meeting with Dr. Pace to review. So, I have read more. The universities really got hit with a lot of these issues. So I've read a lot of their policies and procedures. You get with Dr. Pace from the operational standpoint. Does this work? Can your administrators and staff implement this, et cetera? Because I could bring you anything, and if it doesn't work out in the field, then I'm going to get with Ms. Castillo, who's really, championed this, and go through it, because she's had a lot of conversations with students to make sure we've gotten what we think is the totality, and looking towards by the end of February to be back with the board to actually start the process to approve it. I tell you all that because I'll get with each one of you individually to go through the kinds of things we were told and why each thing is in the policy. Not something I really want to talk about what students told us publicly. I've never mentioned the students, but I don't think it's appropriate. I have respect for them. So that's the plan.
That's all I have.
Mr. Thacker, I got one thing, so excuse me. Some developments have happened on the Bronson property. So I'm hoping Tuesday night to be when you the final report. We literally today, Heather and I, wrestling through the list. So the former law firm delivered to us some time ago hundreds and hundreds of boxes of files. We found that there is a file in one of them. Actually found an index file. I want to read that file for the background of what, and that way, I think I'll be able to say to you the next meeting and the meeting after. We have looked at everything. There's no paper out there that we're aware of that we can find. But that way you can have an informed background on this whole matter. Okay?
Yeah, I really support what you just were discussing because that might be the most important thing that we've discussed all night. So I look forward to it. Regarding the water thing, I've been to, in my tours of the schools, there are some fountains where I think I'd literally rather drink stream water in the mountains of Afghanistan than to drink from that water fountain. So I think that it's very smart. You see it in smart places. It's healthy for the cost, which seems pretty nominal.
That's a cost per school though, right?
Or is it per?
No, this is
per
the
unit?
entire.
No.
Both.
That's per unit.
Yeah, both are provided, the cost per unit and
No,
per
I
school.
get that, but then when you have elementary school, that is one elementary school, right? Elementary school is $9,000.
But one of the bigger things too is moving forward, when you build a new school, you don't have to retrofit. You
No, I
have to
get
pay,
that.
you're not paying twice. So we can kind of include it in the new specs of moving design. But I would still like to retrofit some of the older ones, like you said, that are really bad. Like maybe we could do an assessment and say, okay, these are perfect. And because I know, like I said, some of them, it's been a while since I've used a water fountain, but I know some of them you press, they don't even move, you know what I mean? Some of them are squirting perfectly, you know what I mean? So it's like maybe the ones that are like really bad. And we don't have to retrofit the whole school, but maybe identify specific ones that we
Well,
can.
hey, Mark, I know we're talking about this in specifics, but you said the filter is gauged by the number of times that it's used, but I mean, is that every time that dispenser is pushed? I mean, if I push it, let it go, and push it, let it go, and push it, is it going?
No, it's ounces. It counts
It counts
ounces
the
of
ounces?
water, I
Is
think.
that how it does it?
It counts.
Oh, okay, it counts, okay, that's what I was worried, I could just see some kid going up there, ding, 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 and then change the filter.
Right. But I did have one item, I'm just when you're done, just let them
No, it's fine. Yeah, we had these at Berry where I was just going to school, so I'm a pretty big fan, and thank you, Mark, for putting this together. You're pretty good at what you do for a Navy guy, so.
We'll continue to explore and try to bring back a bigger picture. We did the one here this summer because of trying to eliminate the plastic, which we are still using on a regular basis. And actually all of our employees receive one of those district water bottles. And so, maybe we look at, do you have to have one? Does every water fountain need to be one of these? Or do you have a couple strategically placed? Is what I would suggest. So we'll continue to do some research on that if you'll give us a little bit of time.
No rush.
And then we'll come back, okay?
But one item that did come up, I did speak with Congressman Darren Soto the other day, and we've had an ongoing relationship. And, because we talked about Tallahassee, and we talked about our delegation meetings and everything like that. The federal government has a new administration, obviously, and they have a new Department of Education as well, a new Secretary of Education. And we have inroads with them. And one thing that I spoke to the congressman that I want the board's direction to know about is that when we talked about the CARES Act, right, and the stimulus dollars that we're getting, it's passing through the state. And I think the state is filtering it a little bit more than the intended purpose. And like, for instance, when I spoke with Dr. Pace earlier, we talked about the whole sick leave, right? And, we were paying for that at general revenue. Well, from my understanding is we applied to include it in the state grant, but it was rejected, even though it has to do with 100% of Corona. The same thing with the simultaneous teaching or hybrid teaching. We're paying these teachers a little extra money for doing that. We try to put in the grant, it was rejected. So I feel like the state is kind of overstepping its bounds and vetting what is the Stimulus Dollar Act intention, which is a federal pot of money. I always thought that whoever pays the money determines the parameter. And so that's something I'm working on. And so I was thinking as a possibility is instead of me going to Tallahassee this year, because this year they're on COVID restriction, lockdown, who the heck knows. But I was actually thinking about going to Washington and scheduling a meeting with Soto, and he's going to introduce me to the Department of Education. We can get inroads because I have that personal relationship. So I'm just as effective as a lobbyist to go out there and try to make it happen. But before we do that, though, it would be the board with a list of issues that we would like to put on the grant. You know what I mean? So like allowing the federal government to say, okay, we said, the hybrid teaching, we get reimbursed, the sick leave. You know what I mean? I want to go there with a wish list from the district telling us what should be included in the CARES Act dollars. So that way the federal government can fight the state and say, wait a second, you guys are overstepping your bounds.
Just don't filibuster.
Yeah, I'm not going to fill it.
Or take a beaver hat.
Mr. Thacker? Would we be open to discussing dates for master board training?
Sure.
Yes, please.
Wait a minute, let me get Robert if he's got any comments.
No, I'm good. Thank
Okay,
you.
yeah.
I apologize, I didn't mean
Finish one thing at a
step
time.
in. Right, absolutely. Tina Pinkinson has reached out to see when we would like to schedule master board training. Typically, we would go up the night before and spend the day in Gainesville and then come back that evening. That way we could have dinner together. We would take care of all of those arrangements. And she suggested that we schedule maybe 2 or 3 dates. I wondered about February 23rd, going up on the 23rd. Ms. Kasuya is saying no, okay. How about March 3rd and 4th? Like go up on the 3rd, come back on the 4th.
More open to that.
This Wednesday and Thursday, correct?
Correct. I know that sometimes Fridays are hard for people,
What day? Third
the
and
family commitments.
Yeah.
I can't do it that weekend. I mean, that evening I got school hearings.
Okay. March 13th? Whatever.
Maybe perhaps, that can we put that as a tentative, potential?
Yes, because
Can
we
we
could
consider
swing,
some others
yes,
just in case?
absolutely.
Third, you said.
You can't do the fifth.
The third part didn't work for me though.
The eighth for us. Annual day in the legislature.
Oh, that's a full week
That's
for
the
me,
fifth.
actually.
Anybody else?
I mean,
What is that?
On March fifth is the 34th annual day in the legislative conference.
How about the 18th and 19th? Can we do a Thursday, Friday, like March 18th, March 19th?
that is actually spring break,
Oh.
and my grandchildren are gonna be in town. So I'll be working some of the week, but I was gonna take that Friday.
I'd rather probably not do the Friday. I'd rather do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
What about the 9th and 10th? Go up on the evening of the 9th and spend all day together on the 10th.
Is that March?
Oh, wait, we have education awards that evening in March.
About October 15th.
I was gonna say that.
Oh my goodness. This is
Or do you want
bad.
to just do a couple of dates offline? Do we,
You know-
we need to vote on it, right? That way we don't take up.
We don't need to vote, I just need some
May I ask-
possibilities that I can let her know.
The 22nd of February, which was an issue for me, so I have a work commitment, but is that an issue for anybody else?
22nd, 23rd?
Yeah,
I can do that, February 22nd and 23rd.
22nd and 23rd works.
Monday and
for me.
Tuesday.
it does not work for me
No, we
right
don't.
now. However, let me just see.
It would just be going up on the 22nd and spending the 23rd. Is the 23rd the problem?
Well, that project is launching that week.
Okay.
Oh.
Let's not.
I know, but it seems like the only
No,
weekend
we
that,
can- we can-
Yeah, we can.
But that does work for me though, the February 22nd.
is there any way that we can do the 24th?
Or the 15th and 16th of March, the 24th, I think,
February 23rd and 24th.
Yeah, of February.
Yeah, instead of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I can do that.
that's good with me.
I don't know if she's open to that.
February what?
23rd and 24th.
Go up on the Tuesday, the 20th.
I can make it work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So February the 23rd.
I'll miss two meetings, the VAB and Council on Aging. It's okay.
You spend quality time with that.
Okay, so far we've got February 23rd and the 24th.
Sorry, I'm at the 24th. Wait, hold on. Yeah, it'll definitely have to be the 24th, not the 23rd.
24th and 25th.
So what we're saying is go up on the 23rd and have all day on the 24th, or you're saying go up on the 24th and have all day on the 24th?
24th. Yeah,
So go 24th to 225,
yes.
okay? And then,
Gainesville, said.
and then March 3rd and March 4th is a possibility. So how about if I just give her those for now
Yeah, let's see what she can.
and see if we can't make one of those work? Will that be okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, how did I have that taken care of? Thank you, guys.
Our student representative, Mr. Oscar Newman, didn't make it tonight. We had on the agenda an executive session, which I don't think we are having, is that correct? So if there's hearing nothing else, we will adjourn the school board meeting. Thank you all very much.
See you, Rick.